Hi guys, my name is Ingrid, for those who don't know me, and I'm speaking here directly from the ILO, as you can see, to talk about a very important issue, which is collective bargaining in Denmark, France, and the Netherlands. During the presentation, I will point out similarities and differences in the main collective bargaining features of these three countries. More precisely, I will be discussing the presentation, the regulation by law in these countries, collective bargaining coverage, levels of collective bargaining and their relationships, and fourth, the influence of external actors. Let's first talk about the regulation in these laws. Regulation by law. Let's first point out that the three countries have ratified the ILO Conventions number 87 on freedom of association, 98 on collective bargaining, and their constitutions, they all address freedom of association. The difference is that in Denmark and the Netherlands, it is within the provision of the constitution, and in France, it is in the preamble. With respect to non-constitutional laws, national laws, no country has a single act regulating freedom of association. However, it should be noted that while France and the Netherlands have provisions in their laws addressing freedom of association, in Denmark it's not regulated by any law whatsoever. What occurs in Denmark is that the framework agreements established between employees and employers' representatives regulate the collective bargaining. Now let's move to the second point, which is collective bargaining cover and trade union memberships. I would like to point out first that the three countries have made union confederations that no longer have a connection with a political party. As for the criteria of representativeness, Denmark and the Netherlands have no statutory regulation establishing a criteria that must be met, but France approaches it differently. In France, a union needs to gain at least 10% of the votes at the company level to be considered representative at the company level, and at the national and industry level, it is 8%. It should be noted that the three countries have a decline in the trade union membership. France only has 80% of the working population as a member of trade union, whereas the Netherlands have approximately 20%, and Denmark, which is the highest number, 67% of employees affiliated to a trade union. Despite the low numbers in France and the Netherlands, the representative of the union is very high. 98% of the employees are covered by the collective bargaining in France, and 84% in the Netherlands, and Denmark also has a high number of coverage, which consists of 80%. It should be noted that these three countries there has been a decline in trade union membership. However, despite the low density of membership in the Netherlands and in France, the trade unions are still influential. Now let's move to the third topic, which is levels of collective agreement. I first would like to call your attention to the fact that three countries have collective agreements on the national, industry, and company level. In Denmark is a bit different from France and the Netherlands. Why? Because Denmark collective agreements, bargained between the main workers and the employers' organizations, are called basic agreements. They occupy a space that other countries, France and the Netherlands, reserve for the statutory law. These basic agreements in Denmark regulate the right to organize, rights in dismissal, formal rules on strikes and lockouts, rules on termination of a collective agreement, the peace obligation of a collective agreement, and industrial disputes. But I also would like to call your attention that that's exactly why these basic agreements are not so important in France and the Netherlands, because they are already regulated by law, and as such there is no need to be regulating collective agreements. But as I point out in the beginning, Denmark doesn't have many laws addressing this kind of thing, so they come usually in the collective agreements. In the three countries, the industry and company agreements cover a wide range of pay and conditions issues, including, for example, pensions, special benefits, health and safety, occupational training, and working hours. But when we come to pay, the three countries have a very different approach. Why? France and the Netherlands have a minimum wage established in statutory law, and Denmark doesn't. Let's focus at first in France and the Netherlands that have it established in statutory law. In the Netherlands, collective agreements in the industry level can set salaries for the sector, but at the company level, it can happen, but it's not so common. In France, on the other hand, it's the opposite. Collective agreements in the industry level have a limited importance regarding salaries in comparison to the company level, which has more importance. Let's clarify that. So, in the Netherlands, at the industry level, they set the salaries for the sector, but at the company level, it's not so common. In France, at the industry level, on the other hand, it has a limited importance. And at the company level, it has more importance. They're basically the opposite of each other. In Denmark, there is no minimum wage, like I said, but they counterbalance it by covering widely the collective agreements let me go back. But the absence is counterbalanced by the wide coverage of collective agreements and also the high union density in Denmark. Before I move to the following topic, I would like to talk about the favorability principle in these three countries. These three countries do apply the favorability principle. However, I want to talk precisely here only about France. Why? Because since 2004 in France, the legislative reform weakened this principle. The reform allowed the company level agreements to diverge from the industry agreement areas where this is not specifically prohibited by the industry agreement. With a number of key issues such as minimal pay rates where the divergence is prohibited. Sorry. Okay, let's clarify what is happening in France. Basically, what is happening in France is a trend that decentralizes collective bargaining by shifting the balance towards company agreements as a tool to achieve competitiveness and ensure wages that are in line with productivity. If it's not too clear, the girls can clarify that. But let's move now to the fourth topic, the influence of external actors. I would talk here about the government and the EU, but first let's talk about the government in these three countries. The government of each of these countries is an external actor. However, in Denmark, the government has a limited influence. Why? Because the government is not involved in the agreement due to the lack of legislation, and also because it's not common for the government to be involved in agreements. The agreements in Denmark are negotiated by the employers and the employees' representatives. In France and the Netherlands, it's different though. In France, the government supervises and monitors the progress of social partners by using the power to decide whether or not they want to extend the collective agreements and make it binding. In the Netherlands, the role of the government is similar to France. The government can declare a collective bargaining agreement, generally binding, thus making this collective agreement applicable to the entire industry and sector. Now we move to the EU. While France and the Netherlands already tend to regulate collective bargaining by law, Denmark, since they don't, like I said a few times here, since they don't have many laws regulating collective bargaining, they are forced by the EU to implement relevant labor directives. This influences the Danish flex security system by creating tensions and discussions, since it would change a lot the system in Denmark that already seems to be working pretty well. I hope my presentation was clear. If you guys had any doubts, I'm sure the girls will be more than happy to clarify it. I hope to see you guys very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching this video. Bye.